kind of continuing this conversation of the resources that you use and the outcomes that you wanted to achieve, can you talk about what strategies that you use to find resources? Maybe give us an example, one or two of them, of what the resources that you've utilized.
I would like to use the graduate course because I really like it helped me a lot of, save me a lot of time to develop the tutorials. If without these online resources, I have to develop the tutorial step by step, write it by myself, screenshot everything. It is very time consuming, but if I use the tutorial, they have a lot like different tracks, entry level, intermediate level, and advanced level. So the course I teach, you need to understand your customer, or in other words, the student's background. So we just studied the graduate program last spring. And the students, like the first year, we have 12 graduate students. It's good number, right? But they're from different majors. Their background, like the undergraduate major, even from criminal justice, right? They don't have any background about construction management. So you need to understand each student background. So when you pick the online resources, right? For this case, I pick the entry level, beginner level, right? So they have a beginner level track, the tutorials one by one. After they follow these, like each topic, they have the tutorials. They even have videos and like the online step-by-step instructions. Just I just copy this link and let them to use it, right? But at the end of that module, very good news is from the company is that they encourage the students to take a certificate exam, right? If you pass it, a student very confident in what they learned, right? So I encourage them, but it's not like required you must pass the certificate. If you get a certificate and you write it on your resume, and when you look for a job, definitely the student, like the company really pay much more attention, give you higher rank in this a candidate pool, right? So, but I do not require them. I said, if you can pass, get this much point, you get A, this much point, you get a B, right? So I try to let them relax, but still learn something. Um,
Excellent. Thank you
mm,
so much. Patrick,
mm,
can you talk through your strategies of eliminating this online homework component, which was your first strategy,
Yeah,
and moving into how did you develop the actual resources for your modules or week by week units?
sounds good. Yeah. So yeah. So with physics and most other subjects, chemistry, this is math-based subjects, this homework, and it's an essential component for the students to do homework. On top of that, now when you do the homework, they need to be graded and the feedback needs to be provided. Okay. So what most people resort to do is to do online homework because it gets graded. There's a big downside to this. The downside is that the students, uh, their ability to write out, present a solution step by step is weakened. Okay, because most of the time what happens is there's a problem, there's some numbers in it, they plug in some numbers into some equation and then they get a number, they plug it into the online thing, it says yes, you're right or not, right? And then so it's just as scientists, as engineers, it's very important that they are able to present what the presentation is a very big part of it, right? So anyways, so when I first started, we needed to do some homework, and the options were the standard homework options, online based, with different companies, where a subscription would be anywhere from $50, give or take. Yeah. And this is on top of a $150 textbook that they need to buy. And this is what they do is they combine it. It's kind of a package deal. And you have to buy that textbook, and the homework is based off of that textbook, and it's online, and it gets graded. So from the very first semester, I didn't want to do with anything, and this is before the OER was a thing really. And I found sort of something that was developed out in the 1990s at Michigan State University, and I think University of Illinois was a part of that, and a few other schools, but primarily Michigan State, a few other schools, called Long Kappa. It's a clunky online setup, okay, a little clunky, but there was some great kind of benefits to it if you can work with it. So, and it was free to the students, and all I needed to do it is to hold it in a server. So and it costs my department like $100 a semester to hold the whole to put the site on a server, but it was completely free for the students, and it was still an online homework base. As we moved on, the necessity for the students to actually write in something out and instead of plugging a number in, right? Even though there were some options where you have to sketch a graph or something online, it's clunky, but was there, it was still not serving the purpose. So I moved on to so I had this online homework called this site called Long Kappa. That's LONCAPA. That's basically the site. It's a site that you can do homework on and get graded. So I used this for the first few years, and then when OER started becoming a thing, I moved on from a traditional textbook to an open educational resource. And this was something that was developed out of Rice University called OpenStax. Some of you might be familiar with it. They've expanded that to include many different subjects. So they have this OpenStax educational resource. And it's so the physics textbook for the class that I'm teaching that OpenStax has is more or less a carbon copy of the traditional textbook with different pictures and stuff like that, different images, but very similar in format. Not necessarily the greatest resource. It goes through a sequence of topics, kind of chopped up, I feel, but it's a text. Okay, so after the first few years, I moved on from, well, I still had the Long Kappa for the online homework, which is free to the students. And then I got to a point where I don't want them to buy this book because it's not really, we are doing stuff in the class that is actually giving them all the material. Although it's nice to have a reference, so there's that tech reference. So, but instead of having to pay $150, I moved on to using the OpenStax as reference material for them